to, because that's how family actually gets.
Listen to me. I don't have to. He has to. That's your son. He has to. I don't
you
have
to. Remember,
This
once
is a choice.
you and him get married, and really, as far as I'm concerned, y'all are married, okay? And if you're part of him, okay, and that means he's definitely me, that means that you're part of me.
The tension in the room was thick, the kind that made it hard to breathe. Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin stood face to face, their voices rising as their argument escalated. Family and friends stood nearby, their eyes darting between the two, unsure of how to step in. Jim, known for his fiery temper, was growing more agitated by the second, and Chrissy, never one to back down, was standing her ground. "You think you can just talk to me like that?" Chrissy shouted, her voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "You've crossed a line, Jim." Jim's frustration boiled over. "You don't get to tell me how to handle things," he snapped, his face red with emotion. The energy in the room crackled like lightning before a storm as he stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. Then, in a shocking moment, he raised his hand and slapped Chrissy across the face. A stunned silence filled the room. The slap echoed like a gunshot, and gasps rang out as everyone froze in disbelief. Chrissy stumbled back, her hand flying to her cheek as shock gave way to fury. "You've lost your mind," she yelled, her voice a mix of outrage and heartbreak. Jim's son, who had been watching from the sidelines, had seen enough. He stepped forward, his face set in determination. "Dad, that's enough. You can't treat her like that." Jim turned to his son, his expression darkening. "Stay out of this," he warned, but his son refused to back down. "No, I won't. You can't just hit her and expect everything to be okay. You're better than this, Dad." Jim's face twisted in anger. "Better than this? You think you know how to run my life? I make the rules here." "You're making a huge mistake," his son shot back, shaking his head in disappointment. "This isn't how you handle problems. You're pushing everyone away." Chrissy, still reeling from the slap, stepped forward, her voice steadier now. "You need to listen to him, Jim. This is toxic, and I won't stand for it." Her words sliced through the tension like a blade. Jim's son took a deep breath and pointed toward the door. "If you think this is okay, then maybe you need to leave. This isn't the man I look up to." Jim's face turned an even deeper shade of red, embarrassment and anger battling within him. "You think you can kick me out of my own house?" "Yes, I can," his son said firmly. "If this is how you treat the people you love, then you're not welcome here. You need to get your act together." The room felt electric, charged with emotion. Everyone held their breath as Jim processed the words. His anger was still there, but for the first time, hesitation flickered across his face. He looked at Chrissy, at his son, at the people around him who were watching him, waiting for his reaction. Finally, he spat. "Fine. If that's how it's going to be, I'll leave." He stormed toward the door, yanking it open before slamming. It shut behind him. The moment he was gone, the room exhaled. Chrissy and Jim's son exchanged a look, both filled with relief and exhaustion. "Are you okay?" his son asked, concern written all over his face. Chrissy took a deep breath and nodded, though her emotions were still raw. "I will be. I just can't believe he crossed that line. It's not just about the slap. It's everything leading up to it." "Neither can I," his son replied. "We need to stand our ground. This isn't just about today. It's about what we allow in our lives moving forward." They sat in silence, letting the weight of the moment settle over them. It wasn't just about one physical altercation. It was a wake-up call. Jim had been spiraling, and they both knew it. Something had to change. As the sun began to set, Chrissy finally spoke. "Do you think he'll come back?" Jim's son sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. But if he does, we have to be ready. We can't just act like this didn't happen. We need to have an honest conversation." The night stretched on, but something had shifted between Chrissy and Jim's son. They had faced a storm together, and in doing so, they had strengthened their bond. They weren't sure what the future held, but they knew they wouldn't allow this cycle of toxicity to continue. Meanwhile, across town, Jim sat alone in a dimly lit studio, his hands clasped together. He leaned forward, staring into the camera, ready to reveal a shocking truth. "Let me get straight to the point," he began, his voice steady yet filled with pain. "For years I thought I had it all: love, success, a future with Chrissy. But I recently found out something that shattered everything I believed in. My wife, Chrissy Lampkin, stole $7 million from me." He let the words sink in, his eyes locked on the camera. $7 million. That's not chump change. I built my career from the ground up, hustling every day to make something of myself. And now, to find out the person I trusted the most had been stealing from me? It's a betrayal I never saw coming. He shook his head. At first, it was little thin. The atmosphere in the room was heavy with tension, a mixture of sadness and strength. It was clear that Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin had reached a breaking point in their long and complicated relationship. After nearly 2 decades together, it seemed their love story had come to an end. Chrissy had hinted at the split with a cryptic Instagram post on September 20th. In her story, she wrote, "You and I both know you'll never find someone like me. Good luck trying, though. I'll have you replaced by tomorrow." Though she didn't give any details about what led to the post, it wasn't hard to guess. Their relationship had been rocky for years, and fans had witnessed many of their ups and downs. The couple first met in 2004 at a lounge in Harlem. Their chemistry was undeniable, and their love quickly became a central part of their lives. In 2011, they joined the cast of Love and Hip Hop New York, where viewers got an inside look at their relationship. While it was obvious they cared deeply for each other, Jim always seemed hesitant about marriage. Chrissy took matters into her own hands and proposed to him on the show. He accepted, but even after that bold move, they never made it down the aisle. By 2021, after nearly 18 years together, Chrissy had started questioning if marriage was even worth it anymore. On VH1's Family Reunion, Love and Hip Hop Edition, Jim brought up the idea of finally tying the knot. To everyone's surprise, Chrissy turned him down. She was tired of waiting and, more importantly, exhausted by the emotional distance between them. "You want me to be this loving, passionate, supportive woman, but you come home and you're cold and distant," she told him. Jim admitted his struggles with commitment, saying, "All I know how to do is provide. I don't want you to think I'm selfish because I love you more than anything." But love wasn't enough anymore. One night, Chrissy sat alone in their dimly lit living room, her face streaked with tears. Clothes were scattered around, an open laptop glowed on the coffee table, and her hands clutched her phone tightly. As she scrolled through pictures of Jim with another woman, her heartbreak deepened. He looked happy, laughing and holding hands with someone else. The betrayal stung more than she could have imagined. The front door creaked open, and Jim walked in, oblivious to the storm waiting for him. The second he saw Chrissy's tear-streaked face, his expression changed. She stood up, holding up her phone for him to see. His face paled as he realized what she had discovered. Running a hand through his hair, he struggled to find the right words, but Chrissy wasn't interested in excuses. She crossed her arms, staring out the window as tears welled in her eyes. Jim took a hesitant step forward, his voice low. "Chrissy, I can explain." "Don't," she cut him off. "Just don't." The weight of his actions settled between them. For years, she had stood by him, through public scrutiny, through his fear of commitment, through everything. But this was the final straw. Jim's shoulders sagged as he realized there was nothing he could say to fix this. After a long silence, he nodded, accepting the damage was done. Without another word, he turned and walked out, leaving Chrissy alone. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing as her phone slipped from her hands. The room, once filled with laughter and love, now felt empty. The reality of their broken relationship hit her all at once. She had given so much of herself, hoping he would change, hoping he would finally choose her completely. But in the end, he never did. As the camera pulled back, capturing the emptiness of the moment, Chrissy sat in silence, trying to process everything. The woman who had once fought so hard for love now realized that sometimes love isn't enough. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to finally let go.